Welcome back to the Corporate Burnouts podcast. Hey, Mandy, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good. How are you, Mandy?
Good, good. What have you been up to?
We just got back from Florida. Right now, I'm looking at snow out my window. It started to snow this morning, weirdly, but we just got back from Florida. It was lovely there, 80 and sunny.
So you went from 80 and sunny to snowy.
Mhm.
Gross.
I know, I know. It was 70 maybe yesterday, the day before here. I don't want to talk
Well,
about the weather.
right? What did you do in Florida?
So we took the camper down and we stayed at a friend's house, and they live on a lake in Central Florida that has alligators, which made me like, they kept trying to pressure me to ski,
Yep.
and I'm like, there's nothing getting me in this water.
Not today.
Nope.
That's
But
funny.
I worked in the morning and hung out on the boat and at the beach in the afternoon, and we had a good time. It was a good week.
Do you like that, working on vacation?
That's not vacation. That's not vacation. About once a month
Okay.
we go, and I just work from somewhere prettier than Missouri.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. We are not the same. I cannot do that. I have to unplug completely and get away from the craziness. I didn't do that for a really long time, and I learned that I need that getaway, but it sounds like you've got a situation figured out that
Yeah.
works for you. How does
Yeah.
Dan feel about that?
Dan loves it. He loves it, especially, I mean, we were with his friends, so he went and played at the beginning of the day because he's kind of mostly retired in a lot of ways. he has he
He's
has
such a
less
young
work.
retired man.
Yeah, he's not, but his team takes care of everything while he's gone. So it's really fun. He usually has some work to do in the morning too, and then we just always plan by noon to be doing something else. And it really works for us, so we don't feel like we're stuck in the cold
Oh,
winter.
well, I love that for you. I'm jealous that your work week was bright, sunny skies. We have a dust storm happening here, so can't relate. Can't relate. It is crazy windy. It's not too bad. It's like 40, but whatever. It's
But it's
fine.
Texas. It
It's been,
shouldn't ever be 40. That's
yeah,
not
that
fun.
feels a little rude. It does
Mhm.
feel rude, but right this time of year, it'll be 40 in the morning, but then, 85 in the afternoon. So you
Yeah.
have to change wardrobes all day long. So
Yeah.
anyway, I digress. I've
Mhm.
just been working, trying to stay caught up, dealing with crazy teenagers, which is my life. So not a lot, no alligators going on in my world.
No.
So
No, we literally though saw one swimming. Like, so you tell yourself when you go on a lake in Florida, you tell yourself that they stay to the outside, and they really only want to eat people at night and stuff like that. But we are literally pulling up to, and just in the middle of the lake, there's an alligator just swimming like it's his
no.
lake, which it is. It's his lake. And after that, there was nothing getting me in that water. And every single time that one of the guys fell skiing, I'm like, hurry, go get the hurry, and they were fine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine, but I can't handle it. I can't handle
Yeah,
it. It's
that's
so
not
stressful.
okay.
And the dogs. So, they have a boat dock at the house, and the dogs just want to go down to the water.
Mhm.
And I'm just like this crazy dog mom, like, no, don't come back here,
You're gonna
stay
get
with me.
eaten.
I know. And they're not
It's
going to get
fine.
eaten by an alligator. Like, what are the chances that an alligator is at their dock at that exact time? But I was stressed the whole time.
Ugh, that does not sound like fun.
I know. I know. But I am just
The rest
happy.
was fun, right?
Oh, yeah. The rest was so fun. Like, so much fun. But I was just so happy that it was a week that really worked out. Some weeks are um, more work than others, and I don't get to do as much stuff. It really did work out. But I'm just happy because I struggled. Today, we're going to talk about work life balance. And I struggled so hard with that. Like, you guys were always like, stop working on the weekends, like have work life balance as much as we could have. But I think I'm really figuring it out. I think I'm really figuring it out. And some days I can't figure it out. But
Yeah.
like when we take that monthly trip, I always figure out how to have fun in the afternoons. And sometimes I have to get back to it at certain times, but I love that. I feel like I'm finally outside of corporate figuring it out.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely jealous. I am like you outside of corporate, but that is not my world. I'm like dealing with the teenagers and living and dying by the calling it Uber mom, living and
Mm-hmm.
dying by their schedule. But it's interesting that you bring up work-life balance and talking about how we would tell you stop working on the weekends like I have any room to talk. I will say that over the years, I don't think that I got better about the balance aspect of it. I got bitter about working. So I would stop working like I don't have to, I don't want to, but not because I didn't feel that instinct to do it, or I didn't constantly have that to-do list running in my head. Um, I'll tell you the turning point for me, and it's not even fair to call it a turning point because it didn't really change much. It should have it, but the alarm went off. My girls were, I want to say like 3 and 4, maybe 4 and 5, somewhere in there. And my oldest drew a picture and it was really cute. She's just with her colors and paper and she drew a picture of our house and she's outside with her dad and they're flying a kite and sister's on a bicycle. And I was like, that's really cute, but where's mom? And I'm thinking she's going to be like, oh, you're out of town for work because, well, I traveled for work for years. But no, she drew me. And so she was like, you're in the picture. You're right there in the window on your computer.
Mm,
Like
that'll
what
get you.
a
Oh,
moment of shame where I'm like, oh great, this is how they're gonna remember me. And I don't think that is that way fully, but that was one of those moments where it was like, oh my gosh, you are home with your kids and you're sitting in an office on your computer because you feel the need to get work done rather than apparently fictitiously being outside with your kids riding bikes and flying kites.
that feels like rock bottom. You know what I mean? Like that was your work life balance rock bottom.
It should have been. The alarm went off, but I didn't
Yeah.
do anything about
Yeah.
it.
You didn't listen to it and you kept going. Just to give everybody a backstory on us. So we know that any corporate job, when you go to the office every day, right, you still have a hard time balancing and you still sometimes work on the nights and weekends. But for us specifically, we traveled. So we were gone usually 4 to 5 days a week, sometimes for 12 days in a row. And it it made it almost impossible. It made
Yeah.
it almost impossible to have that life, to be there for everything that your family needed, to participate in a social life of any kind. Like I always say, my life was on hold for those years. Was I having a good time? Sure. Was I hanging out with my best friends and all kinds of people that I enjoyed being around? Yes. Did I have a boyfriend who asked me where the party was this week? Like he was always like, where's the party this week? Because we entertained managers and um, we hosted meetings that there was a lot of work and play, right? So it's not to say that it wasn't enjoyable, but we're talking about your life at home, like what's going on at home. Mine was on hold a lot of the
Yeah.
time. And it makes it hard to keep up those relationships.
Yeah,
And
and mine was not on hold in the same way that yours was. I was married with 2 kids.
mm,
And so my life at home kind of just kept going without me when I wasn't there. And so coming out of the corporate life and being home with my kids every single day. I probably picked the hardest time of their life to do that in teenage years, but I think the most important ones for mom to be home and to be engaged in every aspect every day. But life kept going without me. And if I had learned lessons in work life balance, maybe I would still be married with those kids at home. It's not how it turned out to be. And it wasn't the only issue, but it definitely made things hard. For me, I was able to hide from the things at home that I didn't want to face or deal with, that it made it easy to escape into work. So there were times where it would be like, I mean, I could come home after 3 days, but I don't want to. So I'm going to find somewhere else to go. I say find somewhere else to go. There's always work to be done, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
would just tack that on, and create scenarios where I wasn't as available at home. I was there for every important, school play, for all of those Valentine's parties and that kind of stuff. I was present when it counted, at least enough. We were really smart in that we made sure that there was a mom or a dad or at least a grandparent present for every school function, all of the things that you want your kids to feel supported on. But it wasn't always me. But I was there when it counted. Now, if the school calls and says you got a kid with fever, sometimes I had to drop what I was doing and get back to Abilene. Sometimes it wasn't possible. So there was a lot of give and take. But life couldn't stop for me. And I'm grateful because I had a family and life needs to move forward for them. And it always made me feel really badly for you and other people on the team that were at a little bit of a different place in your life where because of the roles that we were in, you couldn't really establish a life at home because you weren't spending enough time at home to have a life there. And that gets really, really difficult.
Yeah. And even though I didn't have kids, I had a partner at home, and it was the guilt that I felt because he was not supportive of the job. He did not see the point in all of the work that we did. He needed me to be at home, right? That was, I mean, just the guilt trips and the everything. It was like, it made me want to do the same thing as you, is kind of pull away a little bit and, like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I'm going to hide from my life out here a little bit because
Yeah.
it's not working out the way that I want it to. And it was it killed the relationship. And do I blame
Same.
it on the job? Right? No, I don't blame it on the job. I blame it on the deciding what was most important and going with that. Was my job more important? No, but my happiness was, and it wasn't working. Like, so if someone's not supportive of you, you'll never figure out the work-life balance because it will never be enough, right? So that was my experience of just, I can't win anywhere here.
Yeah. And my experience with that on the support side was very different. My husband was very supportive of it. He understood the work that I was doing. He understood how important it was. And he knew all of the people. He worked for the same company, just in a different capacity. So he knew and he understood and he got it. But his desire to support me, or rather not ask me to give up something that I wanted. He didn't want to be resented. He didn't want to be the one to tell me, you don't need this. Like, I was with him when he followed his dreams and followed him around the state. Like, how could he not support me? And he did very faithfully, to the point where there was just this gap growing between us that you can't see happening in the moment until you turn and look and you're like, wow, where did you go? Who even are you? How did we get here?
Mm-hmm.
And we got here because we weren't connected, and we weren't connected because we let the distance of the, 3 or 4 days traveling and then home on the weekends. He worked more when I was home, and I worked more obviously while I was gone. So we were just passing ships in the night.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easy to let it drag out. So I don't know. I think that I have to take some personal responsibility in that not only did I hide in my work, but when I was home, I was never fully like invested in being where I was.
Yeah,
I
present.
had the mentality that I had to be 100% available to these people that I work for and with 100% of the time. And if I'm available to them 100% of the time, then I'm not fully present with my family or my friends or really engaged in where I'm at. And that was a hard pill to swallow in retrospect.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked about this so much through the years about how a lot of people, including us, feel a lot of their self-worth through their work, right? And so when you feel needed by all of these people who you need to be at the drop of a hat, answer the phone for them. We also talked about that there's no marketing emergencies, but we were still that
We
kind of
made them one.
martyr. Yeah, that martyr of they need me. They need something right now. And it's like nothing was going to burn down if we didn't answer. But it's another way to hide in it, right? Because you feel the most what's the word? You feel the most needed at work. You feel the most yourself, like that you're
Yeah,
good,
you're adding value
right?
to
You're good at what
something.
you're doing. And so while I'm sure that you also felt like a good mom and a good wife, and a good friend and all those things, you really shined at work, right? So it's easy to say, they need me. They need me here. Even if you're not trying to climb the corporate ladder, it still is good to be needed, and it's good to make bosses happy. And and I think we both got stuck in that quite a bit, where we could have been completely hands off, at least in the evenings and the weekends. Although I think that we didn't really have a chance because we had two full-time jobs, based on whose expectation it was, right? So it's like we had a day job and a night job to get the entire job done, right? Not
Yeah.
everybody has that, but even if they don't have that, they still can find it. And are you hiding? Are you hiding from something that you don't feel sufficient about in your life? Maybe, ask yourself that question. But I think most of it is just wanting to continue to be good at what you do.
Yeah. There definitely is that element that we put it on ourselves. Like I definitely got a lot of my self-worth and I felt really good about myself that I was doing well in this role and that people liked me and they wanted my help. And if they reach out to me and I don't answer or get back to them fast enough, they're going to move on to somebody else. And then when it comes time for recognition or promotions or whatever, it's like you get in the weird cycle of like, they're going to remember this one moment that I didn't answer the phone. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to be a candidate for whatever comes next. I mean, the dangling of the carrots always got me too. And for whatever reason, I fell for it. It was like, well, for your next steps, this, and this. And it was like, I would get like really hone in on that and make sure that I was focusing on this, and this for whatever that next step was going to be. And it gave me a rabbit hole to really fall down into where nothing else mattered and I could tune all this stuff out. There's no problems with your husbands. Your kids don't need you over here. You do enough to get by with all the things so that I can check the box. And I was at this party and I was at this and I going back and looking at my calendar, like it was insane. I had every aspect of my life on that calendar that I lived and died by. And I could tell you where I was on any given moment or where I'm going to be any given moment, a month forward, a month backwards. And now I'm like, I don't know what I had for dinner last night. That's not information I have to keep up with.
Yeah.
It doesn't even occur to me to like retain that information. Whereas before, everything was so structured because it had to be in order to fit it all in that I was running myself ragged. I was like burning the candle at both ends. And quite honestly, probably failing at all of it, or at least not performing at my highest level at work, with my kids, in my marriage, in my friendships. There was nothing that was thriving ever
Right.
because
Because
I
you
was
were
trying to do
burned
it all.
out. Yeah. You were burned out. And what I think is interesting is we are kind of talking about when you put too much towards your work, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then what happens when you're like, nah, I'm going to figure out how to make my first priority my family and my friends and my home life, right? Because that's what's been struggling. So I have to make that. How many conversations were had when you know what I mean? Like when you decided, and
Yeah.
then you swing too far the other direction because balance is freaking hard, you know? So those conversations are really uncomfortable because there's an expectation of the performance that you've always had. And now you're trying to make it work, and now you look like a loser at work and your boss is
Yeah.
mad, you know?
Because you set an unsustainable
Yes.
expectation of
Mhm.
what your everyday performance should be like. And
Mhm.
when you're passionate and you're driven to do what it is that they're asking of you, it's really easy to do that and get lost in it. But like, I gotta be honest, I still love the company that I worked for and
Mhm.
all the people in it. Like, I love them. But like, the passion for it, like, it just like at some point, I didn't have the gas in the tank to keep going
Yeah, it
because
dissolves.
passion is,
Hmm.
it's a, it's not a never ending resource that you have. You have
Hmm.
to stay engaged and you have to continue to fall in love with what it's just like people. You have to continue to fall in love with your partner over and over and over again to keep the
Hmm.
magic alive. It's the same way in your work. And that's kind of where my brain went when you told me that you were in Florida for the week, but working every morning. And I'm like, wait a minute, how's that rest and relaxation? But at the same time, I can see it from your perspective. You are 100% in control of the time frame in which you set aside for work and the time frame in which you set aside for play, and there was no pressure from one or the other to give up the time that didn't belong to that task.
Hmm. Absolutely. I also think, obviously, it's a lot easier now because there's no promotions for me. There's no dangling carrots.
Yeah, you're running
It's,
this thing, girl. You
yeah,
ain't going nowhere.
yeah. Obviously, what drives me to work more than maybe I should at this point is just money. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
there's nobody being like, you're not working hard enough. But it's like, if I don't take that call, that might not turn into a
Yeah.
website that we sell, and then they might move on to somebody else, and now we've lost out on that. So there's still the pressure, I guess, but that pressure is put on 100% by myself
Yeah.
and not anybody else. So because no matter how much I want to not be a pleaser, like, we are people pleasers, like that's who we are, and so many people are. So what I think is interesting through the years is that I really felt like I had figured it out, right? I stopped working on the weekends. I got everything done during the week. We'd sit in hotel room beds and work until midnight on the computer. And so I could be 100% present when I got home. And I felt like I had mastered it, right? I'm like, I've got this balance down, even though that was still no life. You know what I mean? Like, that was
Yeah.
still no life. You shouldn't work for 16, 17 hours in a day. That's nuts, right? That you still need to have a life, even if it's not for somebody, if it's for yourself. But I would go home and I'm like, I've got this. This is no problem. I am going to shut my phone off. Everything's going to be great. But that was my expectation, right? That was my expectation of work life balance. But what about the other people in your life? Like, you have to communicate, you have to know what their expectation of your work life balance is. Is it even possible to live up to their expectation? But I know that we've all run into that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what's very interesting about what's different about the relationship that you had at the time that was not going great because there wasn't the same level of support. Obviously, you were living in a different world. And now you're in a marriage where you both are in charge of your own hours and setting your own lifestyle entirely. And there is so much support, but there's so much understanding about what your current role in your work life requires out of you, and it's reciprocated on both sides. There are times where Dan has to go do things that maybe are when you're free and vice versa, but you guys work together and collaborate and communicate really well on what you have going on to be able to make that work. My world is a little bit different. I you obviously know this. I decided to step away from the corporate world in order to be more present for my kids. I went through a divorce and really got punched in the face with my own shortcomings and where I went wrong in my decision making, specifically where it came into the play of balance. And uh, just got really lucky that things in your world and things with my world all kind of started happening at the same time, and I was able to take that leap. So now my work life balance is being available to take my kids to school, being able to go pick them up from school, taking them to theater practice or tennis practice or like whatever, taking them places. Um, we're almost through that. Like we should be driving really, really soon.
But
But
then you'll have to go to every play and every tennis match, and
yeah, like
so
life doesn't stop
mhm.
then either. And little girls don't stop needing their mamas just because they have keys in their hand. So being able to be available to that and not feel guilty. The
Mhm.
guilt is what ate me alive before because if I wasn't at home with my kids, I felt guilty. If I wasn't spending time with my husband, I felt guilty. But if I wasn't working, every time the phone rang and it was one of my many bosses and I was with my family, I felt guilty. Like, I don't want to tell you that I'm at the park with my kids. Like, you're going to be disappointed when that is 100% not true. No one ever said, I cannot believe you took today to be with your family. That is unacceptable.
No,
No one ever
that's
even
the
got close to
pressure.
that.
That's
I
the
did it
pressure
to
we put on
myself.
ourselves. Yes. Yes. I'll tell you a story. So there was someone who we worked with who did the same job as us in corporate. And she was a light of a person, is a light of a person. And everyone loved her. We loved her.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. But we silently judged her for her work-life balance. And I feel horrible about it now, right? Like we weren't mean about it, but it was like, when you see that person and you're like bitter because they have what you want and you're like, but why don't they answer
Why
their
does
phone on the
she get to
weekends?
do it that way and I don't?
Right. And it's corporate teaches you, like the hustle culture is real.
Mhm.
And we're like, she is not hustling on the weekends. She is not working in the evenings. She is not traveling as much as us, right?
Yeah.
And but she was moving ahead. She was going to be the next one to get promoted, and she was. I mean, she was so good at her job, but she had boundaries, and I did not respect them because I thought that you had to hustle at all times. I thought you had to pick up that phone no matter what. And
Yeah, I was dropping my boundaries in order to get ahead, thinking that that
yes,
was helping me and supporting me and going to get me further. And really, it just tore me down further.
right. And she didn't have any guilt about it because she's like, I signed up to work this. I did not sign up to work this. Now, there were weekends, I'm sure we had to work Mother's Day and, different
Yeah.
weekend type things. And I am sure that she was there, boots on the ground. But on a normal weekend, she had that boundary in place. And I resented it a little bit because I'm like, how
Mm.
do they think that she is so good at her job and she should be promoted when she doesn't work as long and hard as me? Right. That is so unfair. If you know who you are and who I'm talking about, then I'm
We're
sorry. Just know we're
sorry. We're
sorry.
so
We were
sorry.
brainwashed by corporate culture. And it just feels bad because it's like looking back, there was nothing wrong. She was, however, the first of us to leave and go do the work from home remote life, walk into the coffee shop in the middle of the day and
And I
still
was
getting it
still
all
bitter.
done.
She left, and I would see all of these great posts, and I'm like, how dare you drink a coffee in the middle of a work day?
Yeah. How dare you shut down your computer for 30 minutes to go get coffee?
It's
And
embarrassing to say out loud.
it is. It is. And judge us. Please judge us for this.
Yeah.
But we know better now, right? Were we happy for her the entire time? Yes.
Yes,
We love her
absolutely.
dearly. Yes. But it was hard. It's hard looking back and going, I had judged her. And she was just doing what we all should have done and set those
What I wanted
boundaries.
to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
and totally could have, but I didn't because I felt like dropping those boundaries were going to get me somewhere that they never were. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had the wrong story playing in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's no one's fault. Like it's our fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because we could have set that up and it would have been fine. It would have been
Yep.
fine. And we would have still been able to do the job as many years as we did. And I mean, maybe longer if we had been a little bit happier with the work-life balance.
Yeah. We did have a leader at some point do a presentation, a leader in our department do a presentation on work-life balance because obviously in our department, being a traveling, I want to say traveling team, but not traveling together team, traveling separately. Work-life balance was an issue for everyone to kind of figure out their rhythms and routines. And one of the things that she said to me that made a huge impact, but again, did not cause me to change any of my ways, was that there really is no such thing there's no such thing as work-life balance, right? When you say that, you think 50% of your time for work, 50% of your time for home, or whatever that looks like, but that's not realistic. It's really not. It's about a work-life discipline, right? Put your personal dates on the calendar first, schedule your work around that, have your non-negotiables, and, prioritize everything. One of the things that I struggled with was that I didn't just have one boss. You have your one actual boss, but then you report to these people over here for this, and then you report to these people over here for this. And everyone thought that their tasks were the most important. So then it made it tough to prioritize. And when I had to say, ooh, I actually have this on my calendar and I can't make this meeting that you just scheduled. There is guilt when you're asking somebody to reschedule a meeting for all these other people because you said that you would go to a kindergarten musical. But the fact of the matter is, I should have stuck to my guns and they can have the meeting without me if that's a problem.
Mm.
On the flip side of that, like, I think there was that part of me that, like, liked it when they were disappointed if I couldn't be there. Not that I wanted them to feel disappointment, but like,
Yeah,
what if
you want
they
to
weren't?
feel
What if they
irreplaceable.
weren't disappointed and they were like, who cares? Who cares if Mandy's not there? Like,
Hmm.
she sucks anyways. Like, that would suck. That'd
Yeah.
be terrible, right?
Hmm.
So, I liked it. So I was more than happy to be accommodating, to move things around so that I could be there because I loved that they wanted me to be there.
Hmm.
Um, but that, that the comment that she made about a work-life discipline, it really makes a lot more sense because I can't remember how you put it. We were having this conversation earlier, but there was somebody else that named it something else. What was that?
Yeah, work-life harmony. And I really liked that.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because that's really, there's ebbs and flows and it's going to be up and down. You're not, sometimes you have to give more to work and it is what it is and it sucks, but it's reality. Sometimes your family needs more from you and you have to be willing to put work on the back burner for just a little bit to get through what you need to get through in your family. So I do think it's more about harmony. And a big piece of that is communication because I know that if I had been better at communicating why I was doing what I was doing or what my partner needed from me out of that, maybe I would have made relationship or I would have made differences in that relationship and things wouldn't be where they are now. But lessons learned, past is the past.
Yeah. But
It is what it is.
specifically with kids, right? Like they really don't understand work. You know what I mean? Your spouse usually understands, work and that there's things that have to be done, but your kids don't get it. Like they, especially 6, 7, 8 year olds, they don't understand. They don't know why you have to work.
Yeah.
So I think that one of my biggest tips would be to ask and they're not going to understand balance or any of that either, but what are your non-negotiables? Like what if I could be one other place with you, you know what I mean? Like with Pays or whoever drew that picture, it's like, would it make you happy if I tried to, when there's something fun going on, like
Yeah.
flying a kite, do you want me to shut my computer during that time? Or do you want to make sure that I'm always there for bedtime or I'm always there to watch your cartoon with you or whatever?
Yeah.
It's
What's
like,
a constant that I could do for you?
yes,
Yeah.
because I think that there was a time when I thought that I was really mastering it and I wasn't because, well, what my partner needed was unrealistic, right? Like we were
Yeah.
just never going to get on the same page about it. And that is what it is. But with kids specifically, it's like they could feel like you failed the whole time, right? And you're like, no, I balanced it. Like I balanced
Yeah.
it, but you're not because you're there for the big stuff. But they're like, I just want to make sure that you're there for bath time every night, or you're there for
Yeah.
um to pick me
Breakfast
up
on a
from
Tuesday,
yeah,
whatever it is.
because there's way more everyday occasions than the special occasions, and they might need that. So I think that, yeah, like you said, just opening up that communication is so huge. So huge.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm very happy that I'm on the other side of the hustle culture in that way, and now life is a little bit calmer. I will say though, there is a piece of that, and it's funny, like just in thinking this through and having this conversation, I have to like check myself because I think that part of work-life balance isn't so much about when you're present, it's about how you make people feel when you're present. Like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. I live across the street from the school, so it's no big deal if my kid forgets a book and I have to take it, or they spill something on their shirt and I bring them a new shirt at lunch. But it's like, it's a pain in the butt. It's not something that I want to do. And they're teenagers, like, you're responsible, bring your own stuff to school. But it's really not that big of a deal. So if they call me, I don't make it easy on them. And I could probably be a little nicer about it. I could probably be a little bit better about those things instead of it being instead of it being an inconvenience. Like, they know that I will always be there for them, but they also know that I'm going to make them pay for it because they're going to have to hear about what I wasn't doing while I was there for them. And it's not always that way. It makes it sound really bad, but
No, but
it is that gut check moment of like, if you want to be present in your life, be present in the way that you want to be. Like, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to think about you? I don't want my kids or anyone in my life to feel like, oh, I don't want to ask her for that because then she's going to make me feel bad because she should have been working, or,
right,
you
but there's a
know,
huge difference between use your head and remember to bring your lunch with you, or remember
yeah,
to bring every single book that you're supposed to bring. Like, that's parenting. That's just, you know what I mean? Like, we have
yeah,
to stay on top of those things, right? There's a difference between making them pay for it, in the way of a little bit of a lecture, like you knew what you were supposed to do if you'd planned ahead, blah, 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 getting them ready for the future. But there's also a major difference when you say, you put me behind in work today, blah, 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 blah. Like, they don't deserve to feel that guilt. You know what I mean? Like,
about my work that is not their
yes,
responsibility. Yeah.
no, that you
And
could just work an extra
it's never
20
that
minutes
big.
later. Yeah.
It's never that big. I just think about the times where it's like, if they're like, "Hey, mom, yeah, dinner is always a big thing." They're like, "It's 6 o'clock." I'm like, "You're right." Like, normal people are still working at 6 o'clock. I'm sorry that I'm not Susie Homemaker and I don't have dinner on the table ready to go at 6 o'clock. But yes, I will stop and we will, like, the sigh. Come on, Mandy. Come
Mm-hmm.
on. Like, we don't have to make our kids feel guilty because they want to eat dinner at a reasonable hour.
Right.
That's a gut check moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's part of work-life balance, that I could be better at. Just outwardly, I'm doing the right thing. I'm stopping when I'm supposed to stop and I'm getting them what they need to have, but how am I making them feel about it? And when I think about it in that light, looking back at all the things that I did show up for, I wonder, it wasn't made to feel this way, but I wonder how much guilt or animosity or any other kind of feelings about that could have been had about even the time that I was there, because I don't know how well I did at making them understand that that's where I wanted to be, even if it's not where I felt like I needed to be, because I had the pressures and the guilt from both sides at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to read some stories? Are you interested in
Yes.
doing that? Okay, so
Yes.
we have we want to get your stories, obviously, but until we have your stories, we have grabbed some from Reddit that are relevant, right? And we
Yeah.
want to hear what you guys think about these. So I'm going to read the first one and we'll see what you guys think. So this is from Am I the Asshole? Am I the asshole for telling my boss no to working weekends when my coworkers don't? This is from Free Finally on Reddit. All right. I got hired for the salaried job where they really hyped up the work-life balance and reasonable hours in the job interview, like the way that they never expect people to stay late or work on weekends or holidays. They roped you in.
Mm-hmm.
That
You
turned
fell
out to
for it.
be BS, she says. My boss got my personal phone number off my resume from when I applied, and after not long, he was blowing up my phone on nights and weekends asking me to come work. I'd never answer. Then, when he'd ask on Monday why I wasn't answering my phone, I'd pull out my work phone, like, sorry, are you sure you have the right number? I'm not seeing any missed calls. And he'd often say he called my personal cell, so I'd say that I don't really use it much. I leave it at home a lot, and when I do check it, I've usually got like 40 missed calls, and my voicemail is always full, so I probably miss stuff unless I'm expecting a call at a certain time. And that if he needs to reach me, he should try my work phone because I'm very careful to follow up on any call on that within one business day. He asked me how he could reach me outside of the 9 to 5 because he sees I leave my work phone on my desk at night and over the weekend. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend. So if he needs me to take a call on the weekend, could he make it a meeting request and put it on my calendar so I know to be available? I love that. She's like, I'm going to set my boundaries and we're going to tell you how to coach me. All right.
But also the gaslighting. Like, none of that is realistic. Just be straight up.
Yeah. Yeah. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend. So you need to set something up on my calendar ahead of time. Or if I know I won't be available to take a call, I can suggest an alternate time to call. He said that wasn't really going to work for him since often things come up last minute. And when he calls people on the weekend, it wasn't planned, and that he's not calling for a teleconference meeting. He's calling asking people to come in. I said that on weekends, I usually have commitments that were made 1 to 3 weeks out, and I'm not often able to cancel a previous commitment with under a day's notice. So if he needs me in on a weekend, it'd be best if he could schedule that 3 weeks out so that I know not to make conflicting plans. He said that wasn't possible, and I said, okay, he could try and reach out, and I'd answer the phone if I heard it ringing, but I wasn't always on the phone, so it might not always catch it. What are you thinking about this?
First of all, I love that you're keeping your boundaries. Whatever, what was her name again?
It doesn't say a name. She's free finally.
Free, finally. Well, I love that you're keeping your boundaries. I don't see any reason to like go to the lengths to tell the stories that you're telling. Just be like, hey, bro, I didn't sign up for nights and weekends. Like, why are we doing this?
It would be
Ask a
easier.
question.
Yeah, be direct. Anyway, I've gone back to ignoring his calls, and my coworkers have gotten kind of frustrated with me, saying that coming in on weekends is part of the job and that I wasn't pulling my weight. I said that I don't know what job they signed up for, but in my job interview, I was promised regular hours, took my pay based on regular hours, and so I'm working regular hours, which is fair. I
Yeah,
feel
that is fair. But say that to your boss, not just your coworkers.
yes. My coworkers got frustrated and said that if everyone did what I was doing, nothing would get done. I said maybe nothing should get done then if it's coming at a cost of y'all not being home for dinner with your family.
Yeah,
I don't
agreed.
really, yeah, I don't really think my coworkers see it as an option to say no. So they're angry at me because I'm doing it and they're not comfortable doing it. So, am I the asshole for not working evenings and weekends?
No, no, she is not the asshole. I mean, this is exactly like the girl that we worked with that we judged. Just because
Mhm.
you figured out how to do it and do it right doesn't make you the asshole that other people can't see that they're making their own decisions to do
Mhm.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
if the work can't get done in work hours, then a conversation could happen with the boss to say, "Hey, we'd like to make some changes."
Mhm.
Okay.
Well,
Does the
and
additional hours come with additional compensation?
mhm, it doesn't. It sounds like the bait and switch is throwing me. That makes me really frustrated, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if she had gone and said, listen, I was told that I did not have to do this, right? I do make my commitments ahead of time. So if you could set up, if you need me to come in, then just tell me 3 weeks out. That's fair. But they're not planning very well at that business.
No. No,
and they don't want
there's
you to have that
bigger
balance.
problems,
Yeah.
bigger problems, and the only way that they're going to come face to face with those problems and solve them is if you do your job in the time frame that you're supposed to, and if balls drop, they have to accurately and honestly look at why. And why is not because you didn't work 80 hours a week. It's because they don't have enough manpower to do the job that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That's
There was one relevant comment and I liked it. It said, convince the other coworkers they're being taken advantage of. Like, let's get everybody on the same page so that we can make some change because this
because
is
the only
not
way
it.
it's going to get fixed and the only way you're ever going to go home for dinner with your kids is if they fix the problem to where you don't have to work late. Because it's
Yeah.
not fair. That shouldn't be an automatic assumption that people are going to do that. I do find it interesting though that, and I think this is a huge generational difference. Like I have friends in multiple generations. I'm 42 with friends in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
The range is out there. And my Gen Xer friends are workaholics. And those are the ones that are not scared to put in the extra hours and they don't really have the boundaries. They're brainwashed. They have that
Mm-hmm.
corporate mindset of like, well, this is what you do. This is
Yeah.
what you have to do to get stuff done. But I'm like, yeah, but look at your life. That's what you do is work. Like you deserve more than that. And then there's the complete opposite end of the spectrum where it's like I'm going to do only barely what I have to do to get the job done and I'm going to leave as soon as I can. There's got to be some, somewhere in the middle where it actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't think that she's the asshole. I don't think that, but I don't think she's being direct and handling it right either.
Yeah. I completely agree.
I got another one for us if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Am I the asshole if I brought my work laptop on vacation, even though my boyfriend is strongly against it?
I don't
This
know.
one is by
Communication?
Used Donuts. My boyfriend, 31, and I, 25, are going on a 10-day tropical vacation soon. We haven't had a real trip like this ever, and I'm so excited to be somewhere like this, and I've only been on the West and East Coast. I have a very well-paying sales job, and I work whenever I want, so long as my numbers are in by the end of the month. I get calls at random hours of the day and the evening to work on something, and sometimes on the weekends. There's times where I have to handle something at a random time, like when we're making dinner or out and about, but it's quick and usually results in me making money and getting me closer to my goal. This quickness with referral partners is literally what has helped me get to the position monetarily and with my reputation. I honestly think that this does not really affect my personal life as it doesn't usually take very long and I can bounce right back after. Things have slowed down enormously, and this month I'm at $0 when I'm usually at the top of my team. This has really gotten me freaking out, especially knowing I'm going away for 10 days and it gives me more anxiety. Anxiety that he does not understand. He has a job where once he leaves, he can just unplug, where I need to be really in the game 24/7. Now, with that being said, I have a better work-life balance than most people I know, and I get to do a lot more than the average person in terms of taking time off and enjoying my day. He's asked me to take my laptop, not to take my laptop on this vacation, and I was a bit shocked because while I don't plan on working, there will be downtime in the evening or early morning when I can pop on if I need to. There's times I'll have a client emergency, and unfortunately, I'm basically my own boss. I have to handle it from start to finish. I also get a ton of referrals from very wealthy people that need to be handled correctly in order to protect my reputation. I'll have a colleague covering and monitoring things to help with clerical items, and I've told him this exact statement. I will not be working. I will have someone fielding calls and monitoring my email. I need my laptop in case of emergency that only I can handle. I don't want to be stuck worrying about something while on vacation when I could just have a few minutes to handle the situation and get rid of the anxiety that I know I'll feel. It's caused such an argument, but we've dropped it. Our vacation is coming up, and I know that we'll have to have this conversation again because he will certainly ask me about it. So, would I be the asshole if I bring my work laptop on vacation, regardless of him being against it?
Mm.
What do you think?
The communication has to be there, but it sounds like he wants to vacation like you, which is a full unplug.
Yeah.
And she likes to vacation with no anxiety because she knows that for 2 minutes every day, she can send that email or deal with something and just wipe it off the list, right? So they just have very different ways that they like to do this. So they
And
just
it
have to
sounds like
communicate.
they're at least trying to have communication about it. I think that there needs to be either more in-depth discussions or better understanding of what and why and how I'll be using this laptop. Um, but they have to be on the same page because
Yeah.
while I like to be unplugged on vacation, if you want to answer emails, you do you, boo. I don't care. That don't bother me, but I don't
Yeah.
want to.
Right.
I don't want to. I have been that person. I did for years. I took my work laptop on every single vacation. In fact, I still travel with my laptop
Hmm.
with no intention of getting it out unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So I understand that anxiety that she has. I will say there is an update on this one.
All right.
She came back and updated it and said he just got home from work. We had the simplest conversation and it's all good. Laptop's coming and we're both very excited to get away. So it sounds like with a little bit more communication, they're able to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But
And probably with the help of Reddit, I assume she saw the comments and she's like, okay, so this is what I need to say to him. He probably just needed it to be explained. This is why I feel I need to do this. This is how it's going to help me actually relax more. I'm
mm,
not going to stop in the middle of zip lining or, something like that, but just to be able to do, get back to people within 24 hours or one business day or whatever. Seems like he
yeah.
understands. I
Yeah.
love
And
it.
it seems like a reasonable plan too.
Yeah. But this is why, like it could have been miserable. It could have been a miserable trip if he hadn't agreed to that or she had bended, right? But it's like you
Yeah.
do have to understand what that expectation of your partner and be on the same page. Work life balance does not come without everybody being on the same page, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sounds like the one constant that we're finding through this is communication is key all the way around, whether it's at work and what's expected or at home and what's expected, because a lot of what we do to ourselves and a lot of what we tell ourselves is really all in our head. It's not coming from either place.
Yeah. But I think that that'll be a common theme of this podcast is we're going to talk about boundaries and communication. And, like I think that it helps everything in corporate,
Yeah.
I think, both of those things.
I 100% agree.
All right.
Well, thanks for the therapy session.
Yeah,
I
always.
love it when we have conversations where I get to, have a couple of takeaways, even if it came out of my own mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys will find that out about us that we talk things all the way through to figure out why we felt that way and what our behavior was and how we can change it. And hopefully it helps you too.
I
So
love
please,
it.
please come back every Thursday. We'll have a new episode for you. Follow us on Instagram at the Corporate Burnouts Podcast, on TikTok at the Corporate Burnouts. Um, we are on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. And please follow so that you can see it the second that it comes out for you.
And share with your friends. Share with your friends that need to hear these conversations because we know we are not the only ones.
Yes. Wonderful. All right. Thank you.
Y'all
Have a
have a
good
great
one.
week. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.